The world sleeps, but some people must work. They work in the quiet hours of the night. The sun is gone, the world is dark and different. Every shadow seems to move. Every small sound is loud. The night has its own secrets. It holds stories people who sleep will never know. The night shift is a lonely time. In that loneliness, strange things can happen. Things you cannot explain. Prepare yourself. These tales are not for the faint of heart. Maria was a night nurse at St. Jude's Infirmary, a keeper of the quiet hours. The old building was a relic, its walls having absorbed generations of sorrow. She preferred the nights. The chaos of the day dissolved into a predictable, hushed rhythm she had come to find comforting. Her domain was the East Wing, a long corridor where life was measured in rhythmic blips from medical equipment. The silence was so profound the squeak of her shoes became a familiar companion. For years, this routine was her sanctuary, a simple peace in a place suspended between worlds. But one night, the peace was broken. It began with a feeling, a sudden, unnatural coldness. It clung to her skin. Then came a sound so faint she almost missed it, a dry hiss like a word on the air. She froze, listening. But there was only silence. The whisper was gone. Just the old building groaning, she told herself, and continued her rounds. But as she passed room 313, it came again. This time there was no mistaking it. Not the wind, not the pipes. It was a voice, thin and papery, cutting through the hum of the machines. It whispered a single word. Maria, her name, spoken directly behind her.
Soft trembling. Hello?
Her question hung in the heavy, watchful silence. Nothing. Her eyes fell on room 313. The room was supposed to be empty, its last occupant having passed a week prior. But the door, which she remembered closing herself, was now slightly ajar. She pushed the door open. The room was immaculate. The only things out of place were the bedside lamp, inexplicably on, and the call button resting on the pillow. As she stepped inside, the whisper came again, directly beside her ear, a gentle sigh. "Thank you, Maria." An impossible, bone-deep cold instantly flooded the room. She fled. Security found nothing. A draft, they concluded. But they hadn't felt the cold or heard the voice. Maria knew that voice. It belonged to Helen, the elderly woman from that very room. Maria had been with her when she passed the week before, too weak to press her call button. The next day, maintenance confirmed her deepest fear. Nothing in that room had been wired to the main panel for a decade. The call button was a dead switch. Maria transferred to the day shift that morning. She never again walked the East Wing after dark, where the quiet now felt predatory. She understood that some calls don't need wires to be heard, and that in the silence of the night, some are just waiting for one last chance to say thank you. It was a Tuesday night, the kind where the sky opens up to wash the world away. Rain hammered the small, isolated highway station, a lonely outpost of light miles from town. Inside, Liam worked the night shift, a silent vigil. To combat the quiet, he had his rituals, worn paperbacks and loud music through his headphones, a wall of sound against the loneliness. In here, the fluorescent lights felt like a shield, a safe, warm bubble against the vast, storm-tossed darkness. But bubbles are made to burst. Around 2 a.m., the electronic doorbell, a sound unheard for hours, sliced through the noise in his ears and made him jump. He peered through the glass. A rusty, beat-up truck sat idling in the lot, a ghost from another decade. Its engine rumbled, a low growl beneath the storm's roar. But no one got out. The headlights just stared, two weak yellow eyes fixed on the station. Then, with a soft click, the door glided open. Not blown by the wind, but pulled, as if by an unseen hand. A figure stood there, very tall, impossibly thin, a scarecrow of shadows and bone. He wore old, dark clothes, soaked by the deluge, yet not a single drop of water fell from them to the floor. He had no coat, no umbrella. He just stood, a statue against the raging storm, his face a featureless void in the gloom. A primal, icy dread washed over Liam. His hand, slick with sweat, fumbled for the deadbolt. The heavy thunk as it shot home felt pathetic, a child's defense against the monster under the bed. He scrambled for the phone, his heart hammering his ribs. He lifted the receiver, desperate for a connection. But there was nothing, no dial tone, no static, just a profound, dead silence, an abyss of disconnection more terrifying than any noise. He dropped the phone and ducked behind the counter, his breath catching in his throat. Then he heard them. Footsteps on the concrete stoop right before the door. Heavy, deliberate. He squeezed his eyes shut, praying the man would just go away. Tap. A single, sharp rap on the glass. Tap. precise, patient tap, a sound that promised it could wait forever. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than the storm. After a long moment, Liam dared to look. The man was gone. The rusty truck had vanished from the lot as if it had never been there at all. He didn't move from his hiding spot. He waited out the night, a prisoner in his own station. At dawn, as the storm subsided, he finally allowed himself to breathe. He unlocked the door and stepped outside. But there were no tire tracks in the mud, no footprints on the soft ground. He checked the roof. It wasn't leaking. There was no rational explanation. Then as he turned back inside, he saw them, glistening on the dull linoleum floor, a trail of wet footprints. They weren't his. They were huge, bare, the prints of feet that had never known shoes. They started at the door and led in a direct line across the floor, stopping right where he'd been hiding. A cold realization dawned. The man hadn't been outside tapping on the glass, trying to get in. He had been inside the whole time, standing right behind him, tapping on the other side of the glass. The safe bubble had never been safe. It was a cage, and he hadn't been alone in it. And he understood, with a certainty that would haunt him forever, that some customers never ever leave. David worked the graveyard shift at the Grand Regent Hotel, a palace of faded opulence. Most nights, his only companion was the ticking of the lobby clock. He'd grown used to the building's nocturnal groans, the settling bones of an old giant. But the silence of this particular night felt different. It was heavier, more watchful, as if the hotel itself was holding its breath. The sharp ring of the front desk phone shattered the quiet. The switchboard lit up, an internal call from room 313.
Front desk, David speaking. How can I help you?
The line was open, but there was only a faint, static-laced sound of a child weeping softly. David frowned. Hello? The line went dead. A fault in the old wiring, he reasoned. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again, making him jump. Same extension.
This is the front desk. Is everything all right?
For a moment, only the sobbing. Then, a cold, guttural whisper crawled into his ear.
Leave us alone.
The line clicked dead. A chill snaked down David's spine. He quickly checked the reservation system. Unoccupied, maintenance lockout. He cross-referenced the old paper ledger. The entry was stark. Room 313, renovation. Phone line severed 6 weeks prior. Impossible. The whisper, the crying. A cold dread warred with his sense of duty. He had to be sure. Grabbing the master key, he left the desk. The elevator's ascent was agonizingly slow, its groans like a death rattle. The doors opened onto the third floor. The air was frigid and stagnant. And there, hanging on the knob of room 313, was a do not disturb sign. His blood ran cold. He kept the entire stock of those signs behind the desk. His hand trembled as he inserted the key. The lock turned with a deafening click. He pushed the door open. His flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a tomb of furniture draped in white sheets. His light found the phone on the nightstand, an ancient rotary model caked in dust. He stepped closer, tracing the phone's cord to where it ended in a frayed, severed stump. It was completely disconnected. He stumbled back to the lobby, his mind reeling. Arthur, the old maintenance man, was there, polishing a brass railing. He looked up, his weathered face showing no surprise, only a deep, weary sadness. Arthur asked softly. David could only nod.
You got the call then? You look like you've seen a ghost. In a way you have.
He told David a story the hotel preferred to forget. Decades ago, a man checked into room 313 with his little girl. One night, the manager called the room after complaints of screaming. He could hear the girl crying, begging her father to stop. By the time staff broke down the door, the room was a wreck. The window was wide open, the man was gone, and the little girl was never found. They hushed it up, Arthur finished, his voice low. But the room remembers. Every few years she calls, still crying, and he's still there with her, telling anyone who listens to leave them be. David stared at the silent switchboard, the light for 313 now dark. Sometimes calls still come from room 313. Mark was a night guard in a warehouse the size of a city block. At 4 a.m., a crash exploded from the far end. "Did you see that?" he asked. Cameras showed nothing. He went to check. Every box was perfectly in place. Then he heard it, a soft scraping, a heavy drag on concrete. Closer. Then silence. He shone the light. The darkness swallowed it. Something was down there. Something was moving. In places like this, sound lies. or tells a truth we can't see. The stories you've heard are more than spooky tales. They reveal what can unfold when the world grows quiet. A ghostly whisper, an unseen visitor, a call from a deadline, impossible sounds, ordinary people, ordinary jobs, unforgettable nights. Sometimes we are not as alone as we think we are. The ward is never empty. The station has one more customer. The room is never truly vacant. The warehouse always echoes. The night is never truly empty. And that is the most haunting thought of all.